Good evening, one and all, and welcome back to Land Bible Studies. I've decided, as of this stream, I'm abandoning my previous thumbnails. I'm just going with the most boring thumbnail I can find, just a black text on a white background.
You're giving into peer pressure.
Well, I feel, in the spirit of waiting for UO, this channel also should be as secretive as possible and succeed purely on merit rather than on algorithm duplicity.
Well, it did accumulate in the terrifying previous one. What was that one with Luther doing the exorcisms?
Oh,
that thumbnail was a bit too terrifying. I kind of had to stop after that.
Yeah, I revealed the inner demon that was forcing me to do those terrible thumbnails, and now I've come back to the light. All right. Well, we're here to talk about Proverbs chapter 11. We're becoming a very Proverbs-heavy channel at the moment. The reason for this is that on Tuesday, I'm off to see Mr. Carl Benjamin to talk to him about Proverbs. So I'm doing my prep publicly. So you're all here to help me with processing some ancient wisdom, and then I'll share it with, who knows, the Lotus Eaters or something.
If I say something clever, remember to credit me by name.
Yes, as the wise Poe the person at Poe the person once said.
Yeah, well done for scoring that. By the way, we're all very proud of you. I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Well, I think it'll be a fun time, but I'm still not entirely sure the rules of engagement. If I play my cards right, maybe I'll be invited back. That'll be the real mark of success. But so what have we had? I've uploaded another one of my running videos. So the middle third of Proverbs you can now listen to sort of audiobook form. I think we've done a stream on Proverbs 1, done a stream on Proverbs 12. This is Proverbs 11, and on Saturday I'm planning a stream on Proverbs 7. And I'll also release the last third of the Proverbs audiobook. So I think I'm claiming the title of the YouTube king of the book of Proverbs at this point. And yes, this being the penultimate stream, I suppose at this point I should be pretty wise, right?
You're going to have all the Proverbs.
Yeah, I have them all ready to go. I do love Proverbs, though. I always have. So I've had a real fun time doing all this. The only difficulty about doing a stream on Proverbs is, especially these chapters, there are lots and lots of largely separate Proverbs, each of which are quite worthy of discussion on their own. But we're not going to have time for 31 separate conversations this evening. We'll try to keep it a tight hour. So
it'd be interesting to know, if you read it all at once, if there's more, if it's more than the sum of its parts, in the sense that if there would be a kind of through line that would take you by surprise rather than analyzing each piece. Unfortunately, it's probably not conducive to a live stream style environment.
Well, I recommend going and listening to my videos where I do read it start to back. And I've already recorded the last section, so I've done the whole thing. It's 3 hours, more or less, in total, to listen to me read it all the way through. And I read it at quite a ponderous rate as well. So, I think there are lots of interesting patterns like you describe. Some of them are really easy to spot. You'll get Proverbs one after another, which are talking about the same thing. In fact, almost always there is some sort of structure like that. And we'll see that as we look through this chapter, I think. Similar themes and ideas as they were collected together. I'm not sure this was written as a book, like Solomon sat down one day and started at Proverb 1 and worked through. I think that there's more of a collecting process has happened, including, I think there's some reason to think Solomon was taking Proverbs even from nearby other civilizations. So sometimes I guess wisdom is about spotting wisdom as much as it just bubbling up from your inside.
They
These
say that about
proverbs-
Marcus Aurelius' meditations is a similar kind of deal where he was just writing down stuff that he thought and that he heard or that he read.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these proverbs, they are collected together, but they're collected together for a reason and with structure. So we see that the proverbs here and then the surrounding chapters, they're working on a very simple structure of a kind of black and white opposition between two concepts with the this but this, and then they're all sort of building on the same theme. So it doesn't have to be 31 separate conversations, thankfully.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'll try to group them in a semi-sensible way, but let's do.
But anytime I don't think I can see, why a certain structure is used, then rather than thinking there is no reason, I just assume that I haven't worked it out yet. Because there always seems to be some kind of reason for everything, the way it's organized.
I think that's a good assumption, yeah. Let's get going. So, the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. And then wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Somebody pick one of these proverbs and say something deep and meaningful.
I'll pick Proverb 3.
Sure.
Okay, so integrity, what does that mean? It means someone who's held together. It's strong, held together, like Peter the Rock. And duplicity is doubleness. It's separation. You're in two ways about something. And not to plug, but if you remember back to the end of the devil stream, we talked a little about duplicity and how the devil really embodies that image, especially now. His tongue is forked, so he has a duplicitous tongue. He speaks duplicitously. His weapon is a fork, so that is his weapon as well, in the way he splits people. And that is how he will destroy the unfaithful. But he who is held together, has integrity, is the rock of the church. And if he stands upright, then people will be guided away from that duplicitousness.
Very good.
Yeah, I also noticed 3. I think probably more than the others. They work together, but I've been thinking a lot ever since the giving a speech at an event a few months ago. I keep coming back to this question of whether it's better to do what I believe the Bible is telling us to do, which is to value our own integrity above all else, or whether there are times when to be duplicitous or to use dirty tactics is sometimes the only way to win in certain circumstances. And I kind of feel strongly that I should follow what the Bible says, even though I'm not really a Christian.
Yeah, I think there are in Proverbs you often find they're not rules that hold 100% of the time. They're patterns. But one of the patterns it does seem to go after again and again is that the righteous and good people have good things eventually happen to them. So it's a principle that seems to go against some of what we observe in real life, that you see all these evil people succeeding, and even there's other bits of the Bible that talk about that as well, that the raging against God, why are the evil people succeeding? But the integrity of the upright guides them. And I think we saw a similar idea in one of the Proverbs from 12, which is like, if you act according to your moral compass and speak truth, etc., you just are able to act, in accordance with what your understanding of the world. I put it much better in the last stream, but it's like if your map that you're constructing of reality matches the way that you behave, you're much less likely to snare yourself. So there's talk of like, if you make traps for other people, you end up falling into them.
There's a kind of Looney Tunes logic to that, like Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
We see a lot of these proverbs are kind of getting at what appears to be some kind of cosmic justice, and that can be difficult to square with the immediate questions we have, like, do we not see injustice in the world? And I suppose that's what the Book of Job is for. So I think if anyone's feeling that way afterwards, then go read the Book of Job.
But there's often a mention of time frame, though. I think some people want instant karma, but doesn't always seem to be like that.
Could you argue that my thumbnails, where I pull a ridiculous, overly emotional face that then doesn't appear in the stream, is a form of duplicity, where people click on the thumbnail because they think they're going to get some content which is so extreme in its nature that it made me pull this funny face, and then when they eventually watch it, at some level there's a deep disappointment.
I think that's a question for you to consult your own soul.
I know I was arguing the other side just a few weeks back. I think it's a bit of a trivial question, really, since I don't think the thumbnails make an enormous amount of difference. That if I was becoming a millionaire because of the thumbnails, maybe it would keep me a bit more up at night. Should we do some more? The righteousness of the blameless makes their paths straight, but the wicked are brought down by their own wickedness. Oh, yeah, so it looks like perhaps I should have... perhaps the link 3 to 5 means that they should be more grouped. And then 6 looks similar. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the unfaithful are trapped by evil desires.
It's interesting that there's no mention of the sort of the mechanism of this karma. It doesn't say God will punish the righteous and God will reward the righteous and punish the evil. It just says that these are natural consequences of acting evil and acting righteous.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's a good observation, and it's true of some of the other wisdom literature in the Bible as well. People are surprised that there's how did it end up in the Bible? It doesn't seem to talk about God enough.
Well, I think that's why it's so good to talk to Carl about this, because it's it seems to talk about more of sort of the way the world is in a way that might be more easily accessible to people outside the faith.
Yes,
like a Trojan horse to get them interested.
I think there's two perspectives that Christians take on some of these proverbs. One is to say this is describing an eternal positive destination for people who are good. It's kind of hinting towards, oh, well, you'll all be in heaven and it'll be fine. But I don't think that's the primary way we should be reading these. I think the correct way to think about it is that this is a gift from God, that he's given us wisdom to live by. And we should, first of all, just appreciate it as, God gave this wisdom to Solomon to pass on to us. And it's prudent to just pay attention to it on the face, take the Proverbs at face value. There is great wisdom in the world.
Well, there's no proverb without a verb. You have to actually do it.
And isn't there an assumption that all wisdom comes from God in the first place? So you don't always have to preface everything with, oh, by the way, this came from God. It's like, it's kind of assumed, isn't it?
So then hopes placed in mortals die with them. All the promise of their power comes to nothing. The righteous person is rescued from trouble, and it falls on the wicked instead. it's just like a drumbeat going through this thing. Look at all these verses that basically say the same thing. That say the righteous. What have we got so far? Those with integrity are guided. They have straight paths rather than being brought down. They're delivered rather than being trapped. They're rescued from trouble. So there's a sense in which we should be good even if it causes us trouble. But the interesting message here is that in the long run, we'll look back on our lives and say, actually, the times where we did what, we acted according to our conscience, that those turned out well for us.
It's encouraging.
Yeah, especially because it does feel in the moment the opposite often, doesn't it? We feel like we've got a dilemma. It's almost the only times we notice, because if there's a path that is both attractive and good, we don't even think twice. It's only when there's a conflict that we think about it, wouldn't you say? So this is something that I know is wrong, but I really want to do it, and I'm not going to. And then years later, you'd look at that decision and say, wow, I really dodged a bullet. Here's one wider. When the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. When the wicked perish, there are shouts of joy.
It's like being on Twitter.
Yeah. I don't know about when does Twitter actually celebrate anything?
Maybe the second part.
I don't think I've seen much rejoicing on Twitter. They don't have that mechanism built in. Through the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is destroyed.
Think back to Sodom, which would have been saved for 10 righteous men.
Yes. Can you give a really quick précis of what happened? You mentioned Sodom. What can you give a 30-second retelling of that?
Well, God appeared to Abraham and told him that he was going down to Sodom because he had heard that there was wickedness there, and if he found it, he would destroy the city. But Abraham, knowing that his brother Lot lived there, his brother Lot, begged that God would not destroy the city if there was found so many righteous men there, and he bargained it down to eventually 10. And when God went there was not even that, and the men there were so wicked they wanted to acquire the men who had come to visit in order to investigate for God the wickedness of the city, and so he destroyed the city and saved only Lot and his family.
Yeah, so here it is in Genesis 19. They're in Sodom, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, the people of Sodom are wanting to rape them, I believe.
That's the way it's interpreted, although I always find it difficult to actually find the words that describe that happening, but I guess I'm going to trust the scholars on their interpretation of that.
Well, now that you've said it, let's check. So,
maybe I had a cleaned up Bible.
Maybe.
Well, it does say in the NIV in verse 5, bring them out so we can have sex with them directly. But there are other translations that are a little more sideways about it.
Which verse? Verse 5?
Particularly, yeah.
Know them.
Yeah, that's always what I heard.
No, being the same word that's used, like Adam knew Eve and then they conceived a son, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's pretty certain that that's what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I beg you, brothers, do not act so wickedly would be an odd response to.
And
we'd like to engage in some casual, like small talk and find out your daughter's favorite color.
Yeah, you see in the follow-up in verse 8, it kind of clarifies it as well with Lot's counter offer that he will have them 2 daughters who have not known any man, in verse 8. So it's pretty clear that that's what it means.
Excellent. So where were we at? That's kind of slightly to the side of the point, but
It's interesting that the city is the unit of measurement of sort of morality, where I think that is, increasingly in the globalist world, we are less atomized, and yet I do think it's true that different cities have their own character, and you can sort of get this effect where if you live in a bad city where the people are bad, it feels pointless to do good things or to be helpful to random people. You just become kind of jaded, and you can be worn down by living around bad people in that way that you can't if they live in the same country as you. But if they live in the same city or the same town, you feel it.
Exactly. And it was, I believe, Lot and Abraham were together for a long time. They had their flocks together, and they split. And it was Lot's decision which way to go, and he deliberately picked to go towards. I hope I'm remembering this correctly. He chose to go towards the place that had this known sinful but sort of thriving business opportunity. So it is actually a great example to bring up of where Abraham arguably made took the righteous path. Initially, it looked like a mistake, but then look what ends up happening. He's not so happy.
The thing is, Abraham gave Lot the choice as well. Abraham was fine if Lot chose not to go into the sinful land, he would go there. If Lot chose to go where Abraham went, he gave Lot the choice, and he made his choice.
And here is he looked and behold, smoke went up from the land like the smoke of a furnace. That if there was a movie made of Genesis, that would be a pretty epic scene, wouldn't it? Big explosion. Anyway, how did we get there? We were talking about. I can hear a little bit of an echo as well. I think it's probably self-control as well as staticky. I think you may be causing some feedback.
Sorry. If it's staticky, it's boundless. It's definitely me than anything.
Oh, is the echo staticky? Good question. Could you mute yourself for a second and we'll see if that fixes it? Oh, beautiful silence. Okay. Well, remember to unmute yourself when you want to talk, because otherwise you'll think we're just being rude.
It's a good way to raise your hand in a live stream. If you're always muted and then you unmute, people go, "Oh, Poe's got something to say."
Yes, it relies on the host paying attention.
True.
Which I really am not, because I'm busy scrolling up and down this little window. Should we carry on? I mean, it seems almost too obvious to say Proverbs to each other that just say be good. But I think the be good and it will end up well for you in the long run is quite deep and interesting. Do we really believe it? Do we think it's true?
I think it comes down to what we were saying before. When I was last on the stream talking about Peter, we were talking about what it means to believe in something. Mm-hmm. And I think that to believe in God, mm-hmm. to believe in the Bible, would be to take this as accurate and to trust in it and to not worry about the how sensible your decisions are. Just worry about how moral they are and how true to your integrity you're being.
You put it earlier how this is structured in a kind of rhythmic way, and I think definitely the point of these proverbs is to just drill it into your head, and you know we might think at first, you know, we don't need that, you know, I know if I do good things will happen, I do bad things will happen, but we really do need these things drilled into our head sometimes.
Here's a couple more. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. For
Hmm.
lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. What do we think about these?
Yeah, these are all around speech and being and speaking. It seems if we're taking it down to the specifics.
Yeah. Surprisingly specific in some ways. These are about, like, how does a nation fall? They needing more guidance and advisors, which is interesting.
Well, as it said previously in verse 9, with his mouth the ungodly man destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous are rescued.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what the secret is particularly, whether it's good or bad. You can
Mm-hmm.
keep a secret for good reasons and bad reasons, but the point of keeping secrets is this confidence that is betrayed with gossip, and that trust which keeps, for example, a city together, as was said
Mm-hmm.
previously. Um, you can really bring down a nation with the revelation of a secret. It's like
I find
sounds
it
like self-control is still quite staticky. Sorry, go
At
ahead.
least he's back now.
Yes.
Yeah, in
I tried rejoining just in case, but my internet's weird today. Sorry.
well, sorry.
sounds better now.
Okay. I think it's interesting that people will, I think, often speak badly of their neighbor or others, their co-workers, whoever it is, in order to prove how wise they are. To prove that they know better and that they
Yes,
this person
interesting.
to say like, oh, this person really should be doing this, and aren't I clever for noticing that? But to say they have no sense is a big it calls that out in a big way. Make you feel foolish instead of feeling wise.
Yeah. I mean, talking of Twitter, there's a lot of this that goes on there, isn't there?
Mm.
Sniping and fighting, and I get the feeling that there is a lack of sense in a lot of what goes on Twitter. I sometimes wonder if you took Twitter as a platform, but everybody on it was wise and righteous and wonderful, would it still be the cesspool of misery that it seems to have become?
I mean,
I assume not.
it wouldn't. But then what I thought you were going to ask was whether people would still go there, or if the prime purpose of Twitter is for this Schadenfreude
Right.
reveling in the misery of others.
In some ways, that was what I was wondering. Right? Is there a redeemable purpose for it, or does it purely
If
exist
hell were full of angels,
to indulge? Yeah, does it just indulge our baser interests? I've been almost entirely just tweeting Bible verses recently. That's my way to get around the question.
I love
like, I feel a great deal of confidence in purely plagiarizing God's word. That's
You can't go wrong, can you?
position I fit. And since I don't believe in copyright, I don't even have that issue.
Sorry, on verse 12 as well, it's important to note that having an understanding doesn't mean that you're just nice all the time. There are certain people that you almost don't want them to say. You don't want them to say anything about you, because you know that they're going to say something that's so piercing and true about you that it might just destroy you inside. But those are the kinds of people that hold their tongues, like a priest or like a father.
Oh, I've just noticed a super chat. When Jesus calls people fools, he uses the word aphron, which is a compound word of alpha and mind. He's calling them alpha brains as a sarcastic insult, proving that he is Sigma. Good move, Galaxy Brain. Jesus Christ. Wow. That's a quality super chat, Cringe Walker. I don't even have anything to add because you sort of put it perfectly.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's the correct response to that.
The second coming is going to be a great follow on Twitter.
Do not correct a fool, or he will hate you. Correct a wise man, and he will appreciate you. I believe is another proverb somewhere in Proverbs, which is interesting. So actually saying negative things, it depends on whether you think the person's actually going to appreciate hearing that. But if you correct a fool, then they will just hate you. So it's a waste of time. Is the wisdom from the Bible? I find it helpful. Some of these proverbs just. Do you ever feel you're in a situation and you're like rudderless? I don't actually know what the right thing to do here is. A surprising amount of the time, there are already proverbs in existence which give really solid. And once you've been told it, it's like oh, of course, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, ancient problems really weren't very different from the problems we have now.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I always find.
Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer, but whoever refuses to shake hands in pledge is safe. What do you think that's talking about? It's saying... So putting up security for a stranger is that like offering them insurance, essentially?
Yeah, this is a weird one. I feel like maybe could we read another translation, perhaps?
Good idea. So this is...
But to put up security always sounds like you're guaranteeing their loan.
Someone in chat can help us out with the... Let's go ESV. It's always my go-to. Oh, look, there's an anglicized version. Even better. That's why we can't understand it, Poe. It's probably some Americanism that's sneaked in. Oh no, it's the same. Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm, but he who hates striking hands in pledge is secure. I assume striking hands in pledge was the equivalent of a handshake.
Yeah.
It's like we pledge to do something, which isn't necessarily a bad thing to do. So I find this an interesting idea. It's almost saying minimize the amount of agreements that you make. You will make your life hard. After all, if you agree to something and you don't fail to do it, you will suffer harm.
Yeah,
I think that's okay. LaRue's linking it to let your yes be yes.
I was thinking that too.
This is a sort of don't swear by things, as in if you say you're going to do something, you shouldn't feel the need to emphasize that you actually mean it. All of your words should be honest, which makes a lot of sense to me. But I think this is subtly different. Yeah, AM's pointing out it's putting up security for a stranger. Okay, yeah, maybe that is the key part. So then it's also striking hands in pledge with a stranger. So it's saying don't trust randomers, which is interesting because I think we live in a society where we attempt to have ongoing interactions with strangers constantly. We don't even think about it, but we often will go to the supermarket and it's been stocked, and we'll exchange money with people who we've never met before. It's just a weird time in the span of human history to come across so many strangers and interact with them is actually pretty unusual. And I don't think it's very healthy either. And there's lots of benefits of dealing with people that you know well.
I was thinking about
perhaps the striking hands as well. Sofa.
Yeah. I was going to talk about the Good Samaritan. Yeah, there's a story that I think a lot of people know, and it is a very difficult standard to hold yourself to. Sometimes I think this idea that if you see a stranger who's in trouble, then you should go out of your way, whatever you're doing that day, cancel it and help out this guy. And I think
Right.
he even brings the Samaritan brings him to his house.
Yeah.
Which is something that no modern person would really want to do.
It's interesting because I've been reading Homer's Odyssey recently, and the entire story centers around the Greek concept of xenia, which is hospitality to strangers. The idea is that, you know, any stranger that comes upon your house could be a god, and so you have to welcome them into your house, and you have to be as hospitable and just shower them with gifts and feasts, and then before you send them on your way. And the entire story is a series of meetings where Odysseus finds himself in someone's house and is asking them to help him find his way home. And there's one episode in that in which uh, I believe one king welcomes them, and he has tons of daughters, and he showers them with this big feast, and then he sends them on his way. But then Odysseus runs into difficulty, and he ends up having to come back. And at that point, he says, "You're cursed by the gods. Get out of my house," and he sends them away immediately. So what it's not to say that you should not be hospitable to a stranger, because that's constantly a theme, as Paul says with the Good Samaritan as well. That's constantly a theme in the Bible. Abraham welcomes God as a stranger, as a group of strangers, actually, as three strangers into his land to deliver a message to him. And what it really means is, you know, don't make any deals with strangers either. Be hospitable to them, but don't make deals with them, because as much as it could be God, it could also be the devil.
Hmm.
Mm.
Should we carry on? So,
Just one
yep,
thing
go
about the striking
ahead.
hands. I mean, when do you shake on it? When it's your close friends and family? I mean, you normally shake on it when it's somebody you don't know.
Interesting.
So, like,
That's a good
it's
point.
normally just a verbal agreement with close friends and family. So maybe something like that. If you need to shake on it and have that kind of dedication that, oh yes, I'm gonna pledge this. Maybe that's the whole point, you know.
I think of the opposite of hating striking hands is like a wheeler dealer. Maybe that's an expression in English we have that captures some of what it's saying. You shouldn't spend your life going around trying to get little advantages over people by making endless complicated agreements and saying, oh, I promise to do this, and oh, if you do that for me, whatever. Just I think there's an inherent wisdom in trying to be free from obligation. You know, if you're free to act in the future in whatever way takes your fancy, you'll be much more flexibly able to cope with whatever comes into your life. Versus, so it's not saying never do it, but if you know, whenever you have to enter into agreement with somebody, you've sort of bound your hands in a way, and if you do it enough, then you will regret it.
Mm.
Okay, a gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. The wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Maybe since we've already discussed some along these lines, how do these how does this strike us? A gracious woman gets honor, and a violent man gets riches.
Well, the word violent
Just something a little odd.
quite... Oh, sorry. Oh, right. The word violent there is quite interesting. I was listening to Alistair Roberts' commentary on this chapter earlier on, and he suggests, by way of Michael Fox, that the word violent could perhaps better be translated as diligent. which is certainly interesting. But I don't think those concepts are totally unrelated either. You have to be willing to enact your will upon the world in order to get riches. But as other proverbs in this chapter show, uh, getting wealth will be meaningless to you on the day of judgment. I believe that's
that's true. Yeah,
Proverbs
it's you get
verse
riches,
4.
but it's not necessarily a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, verse 4: riches are worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness is deliverance from death.
Yeah.
This is something that struck me once or twice, talking of the issue with riches, that there's kind of I was thinking about politics, and that the left wing is saying we need to redistribute the money so that everybody is rich, and the right are saying we need to allow some people to be super rich so that even the poor end up being rich. And both sides fundamentally have this axiomatic assumption that being richer than we are is good, is a thing that we should be working towards, and they're just disagreeing over the means. And I've sort of started to come to the opposite conclusion, actually, that we should figure out whichever means is the most effective and do the opposite. Because the wealth has caused so much
Super
trouble.
chats are welcome, though.
Yeah, it's the quickest way to rid yourself of your riches, but you will encumber me with a moral quandary. So, but okay, so if violent, or we think of this as sort of ruthless or effective, or it's a way to get riches, given that the rest of them have this pattern of good versus bad, I think it's reasonable. It sort of fits, doesn't it? You've got harm versus security, honor versus riches. Just kind of surprising.
Makes me think of Scarface as well. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. I think you have to also realize that the right wing dream is kind of that the wealthy and the righteous will be synonymous with one another, and that it would be as it says earlier on that the righteous will bless the city, and the idea would be that they would materially bless the city as well.
Well, Solomon himself was incredibly wealthy. In fact, there's this famous story in 1 Kings where the Queen of Sheba comes and visits him. I don't know if you have heard of this story. Queen of Sheba hears reports about how amazingly wealthy and also wise this man is, and she travels a long distance, and she brings as a gift both gems and spices of various sorts, which interestingly I came across some speculation about where the Queen of Sheba must have been from, and apparently there's only a few countries which would have had both trees that were rich in spices and also abundance of gemstones. So it suggests that the Queen of Sheba must have come from somewhere like Ethiopia, or I can't remember the other places, but somewhere in the Horn of Africa, maybe. Anyway, the point is, she shows up and she looks around and she goes, wow, actually, all of these incredible things that I heard about you, but I only knew half of the truth. You're actually way wiser and way wealthier than you appeared. So although Solomon, if we think this is one of his proverbs and he's decrying richness, he didn't stick by that rule himself, did he? And actually the wealth of Solomon in some ways is linked as an affirmation of his wisdom. So
I don't think it decries wealth. I don't think it says anywhere that wealth is like a bad thing.
Because another way of reading this might be don't be harmless, to use a
Yes,
Peterson.
certainly, yeah. I think it's not that wealth is not a good thing to have. Obviously, it's good for you. It's good for your family and the people that the people that you bless with that wealth. But ultimately, it won't save you. And in fact, having wealth blinds you to the ways that you can be righteous. It seems, and that theme is very potent in the Bible as to how. And of course, it says earlier, of course, again, verse 4, I believe, wealth will be useless. But as
Now,
it said, it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than a camel through a needle.
I think I might have cracked it. Okay. There are some translations which put the word only here. So then the contrast is, and I think this probably comes through more clearly in the Hebrew, but
no honor, just riches.
grace is opposite to violence. So a gracious woman gets honor, but a graceless man only gets riches. So then the question is, which would you rather have, honor or riches? So it's not saying riches is bad, it's just less good than the riches. So it's like doing a Sudoku.
What if we also think of it as that women in the biblical world were not prone to acquiring wealth for themselves, as it were, but without that ability, without that violent capability as a man might have to acquire wealth for himself, her only option is to be gracious, and in being gracious, she acquires honor and is blessed.
This is the first mention of a woman as opposed to just a general person, where that man can kind of stand for human person, but a woman it kind of brings to mind a specific person, or does this rule only apply to women? Or I mean, I'm assuming it doesn't just apply to women. It's just
yes. So somebody in chat said, here we go. Why is a woman here talking when Proverbs is addressed to men? Well, in a sense, he's correct that it's addressed to, specifically, the early few chapters are written from a father to a young man. And a lot of the framing throughout is, this is advice to young men. But I would say we spend a lot of time reading the Bible, reading about the things that have happened to one person and then applying it to our own lives. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for women to read this wise advice to young men and find ways in which it applies to them. Not necessarily always in the same way. For example, Proverbs 31. Oh, we've even done a stream on Proverbs 31. I'm all over this book. Proverbs 31 describes it's an address actually largely from a mother to her son who is a prince, will one day be a king. And part of what she says is, you should find a worthy woman to be queen, and this is what that woman should be like. It's pretty obvious then that the the application for a woman reading that is, I should aspire to be like this incredible woman that's being described, versus the application to men, which is, I should seek to find a woman who matches this pattern, or at least is working towards it. So
yeah, well, a woman might look for these traits in a husband, rather than,
good point,
as well as taking this advice to heart, she might look for a man who displays these qualities.
Yes, exactly. A man who hates striking hands in pledge, for example. And one example of a very serious pledge is marriage. And I think there's great danger in marrying without thinking it through properly. Right, should we carry on? A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. The wicked earns deceptive wages. Did we do this one?
Yeah.
They're all getting so similar. I think we did 220. So those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, the expectation of the wicked in wrath.
Well,
Any of those take your fancy?
yeah, it felt like we were going quite fast actually.
Sorry, yes. I realized these all actually take quite a lot of work to process. So going
Yeah.
at this speed is a bit much. Why don't we
Some
look
of them
at this?
some of them come in couplets,
Mhm,
so you can kind of analyze them together. But when it got
true.
to the snout, I was still trying to process
Okay.
the last one.
Why don't we let's do this one and then we'll do this one and then we'll do this one. Right. So 21. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. I think this is the same message that we've had before. Although in this case, it's punished, which is more active and perhaps therefore more deistic.
I was thinking the opposite, like maybe
Ah,
it's like the evil person will not go unpunished, but it seems to be unsaid that you don't have to do the punishing yourself.
yeah.
But then, if not you, then who is going to punish this person? Is it God
I
or
would.
is it?
Well, I think the pattern in Proverbs is it's talking about this life rather than the next. So I would primarily look at this as if you're evil, you will it's not karma. It's just the natural outcome of acting in an unwise way. Like if we've got this saying about it's unlucky to walk under ladders, for example. I don't think there's a superstitious truth to that, in that when you walk under a ladder, you don't accumulate bad luck points that then results in bad things happening. However, there are some actual injuries, and some of them quite serious, that could come from walking under under a ladder, right? So
Yeah, or walking without paying attention to what's over your head in general.
yes. So I think that's more the manner to read these in.
Yeah,
It's
There's
like
also a picture being built here as well through it. So if I tie a couple together here,
yeah.
let's see which verse is it. When the righteous thrive, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of joy. That's verse 10. So here we see, the wicked man, people rejoice when he perishes. But then in in uh, in verse 18, the wicked man earns a deceptive wage. And so, of course, also the violent man attains riches. And so we see, the violence earns the wicked man riches, but it's deceptive as of now. And because even though he is successful in spite of the masses, and there's going to be a lot of energy directed towards him to see his downfall, and they'll rejoice at it. And so on a long enough time scale, he will be punished, and his offspring will be cursed, and all of these days. So even though the righteous themselves may fall to an evil person, their offspring will be delivered, and in spite of the evil person.
Very good.
Yeah.
Let's do 22. Oh,
Go on.
sorry. Did you have something to say?
I was going to say,
on
I think this is the first time we heard of offspring being rewarded rather than
that?
you yourself.
Yes, the first time this chapter, not the first time I think in
Yeah.
the book.
Oh yeah.
Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. I'd say this strikes me as very something I can attest to having felt, as it were, that you can meet a very beautiful woman and then she does something something morally dubious, maybe put it that way, and like immediately I lose all of the luster of her physical attraction drains. So I think in that sense, right, the gold ring is the beauty of the woman. Now, a gold ring, jewelry to enhance the appearance of a woman is effective. Like, I guess makeup maybe is more applicable in our society. But you stick a gold ring in a pig's snout, it's just a waste of time. And then discretion can make the beauty of a woman equally pointless.
I don't know how historical lipstick on a pig, yeah. I don't know how historical this perspective would be, given what a marriage gift might be to Jews in the time of Solomon, but perhaps the gold ring could be a marriage ring, and you could tie that to the previous proverb about not striking hands with strangers.
Good point.
She perhaps a beautiful woman, but if she's without discretion, you're putting a gold ring in the snout of a pig.
How long have we got left? Oh, there's a few. Poe, you were possibly just around for an hour. I think we'll probably end up doing another 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so...
hit me with some more wisdom. Go on.
All right. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, the expectation of the wicked in wrath. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. I don't think I read that one the clearest. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessings will be enriched, and the one who waters will himself be watered. I think a lot of these, it actually reminds me of some of the teachings of Jesus. When he would preach, he would say these things that seem completely back to front and counterintuitive. Let's not get dragged away from the passage too much, but the point being that how do we understand this, that you're giving away stuff and yet you're growing richer, and yet somebody else only suffers want?
Well, it's like we saw with the wicked man. His downfall is rejoiced by the people, and it says in verse 26, the people curse him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. And so it is not an immediate feedback, like it said with the offspring. You might have to, you're losing it in the meantime. It's kind of like an unrealized gain tax for morality, but yeah. Eventually that blessing will come back to you, and that's some very, very ancient wisdom. It's hard to realize in the present, but
I think I'm struggling.
It's like Scrooge. Scrooge has all his money, but no one likes him.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
This word freely in 24, I feel like that kind of is contradicted, or is there's a counterpoint in the verse we had earlier about giving security to strangers, where I think there's a lot of wisdom in this verse. The way I see it, to use discretion when giving to people who are deserving, people who are close to you, people who need it, people who you understand and who you see often. For instance, it's easy to be sort of repaid by someone who's just fallen on hard times or who needs a little bit of help. They might be able to help you later. That kind of simple karma. But this word freely is almost indicates that without any regard for where it's going or to whom.
Yeah,
But
I would
perhaps you
read
still need
this
to have the
as.
friend enemy distinction.
I think to me, this is giving without doing lots of mental calculations, or without giving implications and conditions on what you're giving. So you could
Yeah.
imagine two approaches to being generous. One is that you are of a disposition where you like to help out those around you, and then this is being endorsed here, and is saying that although you're not plotting, nonetheless it will end up coming back round. The other approach to giving would be endlessly, money with strings attached. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine.
Yeah, I find that to build on that, the to lend people money is usually a very easy way to lose friends.
Yeah.
If it becomes a point of dispute, when it's easy, it's much easier to treat a friend to dinner or to even help them out with some money, and not to ask for them to pay it back, or even if they say they'll pay it back, don't hold them to it, or just psychologically let go of that money, don't or that meal or whatever it is that you're giving to them, even if they want to pay you back, just psychologically let go of it so that it's no longer sort of standing as a barrier between you.
Certainly,
Exactly.
it can be generalized to say that if you give freely to a friend in a way that will make him love you for it, that wealth will be returned to you twice over, in a mysterious way, perhaps in a way that we won't know or understand. As it says, even the offspring. So it may not even, it may just be your offspring, like that gets returned. You think of there are so many stories in which a young boy is honored because of who his father is. Yeah, like I said, I've been reading the Odyssey. Telemachus, who is Odysseus' son, he's honored extraordinarily by whoever he's welcomed by great kings who fought in Troy because of who his father was. But you see also with the wicked man, he holds what he holds on to his wealth, yet he becomes poorer. Well, I mean, that's just you can see that effect even in real time, where someone, if you stack up a bunch of cash in a warehouse, it's growing more and more worthless over time because of inflation. But that effect is much larger, and it compounds, and it becomes a moral consideration as well.
Well, very wealthy people do often give to charity simply because of tax reasons, because it's because it can't be taxed. But that's probably not what this verse was referring to, since I think the tax policy always involved tax cuts for charity status organizations.
But the specifics may have changed. Go on.
I was going to say, I've also heard this expressed as if you hold your breath, you lose it, but if you let out your breath, you get another one back.
Yes, that's a good modern equivalent, I guess. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. I love these. They're such clever little linguistic tricks, aren't they? Or even, it's not just linguistic tricks. It's kind of the mental picture you have gets flipped, where this word evil is both something that you can do, and it's also something that can happen to you. I don't think we speak in those terms as much anymore, but it does exist in English, right? The idea of, well, suppose you were driving to work and you had a crash. You could describe that as, evil came upon me this morning. I had a crash. Maybe we're more familiar with good happened to me this year. I won the lottery. But here there's that clever trick where the doing of good, you're going after good. When you arrive there, it turns out to be a lottery win or whatever. I'm not actually sure winning the lottery would be positive for most people, but
to flip it around, when you are evil, it becomes evil that is visited on other people that you are being evil to. So
yes, you're the instrument of the evil in other people's stories.
Yeah, other people will experience you as an evil shade that has fallen on their life.
Yes,
it's contained in the concept of the good and evil inclination as well. So you see this connection between evil and the desire for evil as one and the same, and conversely, the good inclination, you can do the will of the Holy Spirit, but it is also a tangible entity which you can seek and you can venerate in God.
Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. If the righteous is repaid on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner? Any of those stand out to you?
It's taking me a second to do the Sudoku puzzle.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm going a bit fast when I read them, but
no, it's fine.
Which one are you thinking about?
I mean, in all of them. So what does it mean to trust in your riches? Is to put too much stake in your own wealth.
Yeah, to think nothing bad's going to happen to me because I've got all this money in the bank. And then super inflation hits, or some medical bill, or some problem that can't be solved with money.
Yeah. You need to have your riches stored in heaven.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
I've
been paying attention.
Don't store up your treasures on earth where the thieves break in and steal and was it rust away? I guess that's Jesus doing the same interpretation of this verse that I just did, but slightly better. Yeah, you're trusting your money that's stored up in your bank account, and then the thieves come in and steal, or the modern equivalent would be the what are those phishing emails that you get? Your bank is asking you to put in your bank details to correct some problem, and then it turns out it wasn't your bank after all.
Or you put your money in the stock market, and
yes, and it turns out stocks can go down as well as up.
And those riches could have been from previous generations as well, and you can't just rely on the good deeds of your forefathers. You actually have to do something yourself.
It's interesting how all of these proverbs kind of chain together. So you see in verse 27, whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, and then in 28, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Why?
Yeah.
Because he seeks good, so he seeks favor. And then in 29, you see whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and that makes me think of Peter falling into the water when he turns to look at the wind.
What does it mean to trouble your
What does that inherit the wind part mean?
Both.
Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like we need to address both halves of this sentence then. Anybody got thoughts about what troubling your own household might imply or include?
I guess if you're the dark sheep of the family, you're a trouble to your parents.
Yeah.
Or to your wife, I guess.
I'm thinking of your own household, possibly. Yeah, maybe being the household to which you belong, but also maybe I'm thinking about your household being your wife and children, and I guess maybe you would have included servants hangers on in that list. But
Well,
to trouble them,
the
if
wind
you're
could be the complaints of the wife then.
so the troubling of the household then would be like making, I don't know, loud noise in the middle of the night that wakes them up and complaining all the time, being in a bad mood, asking them to do things that inconveniences them, and
It says
stop
in
preventing them from doing useful stuff that they want to do.
it says in Deuteronomy 21 that as to what you should do with a rebellious child, all the men of the city should stone him to death, which is sounds extreme to us, but I mean, look where not doing that has got us, I suppose.
Yeah, you'd be less likely to rebel in such an environment, wouldn't you? Which would have a big effect. Okay, well, the fact that it's talking about inheritance, maybe I was a bit hasty saying that this was the household that you were the head over. So yes, maybe it is being the black sheep, and then inheriting the wind, meaning, well, what are you hoping to inherit? Gold, chariots, a ring for the snout of your pig.
Maybe inheriting the wind has more significance for people whose livelihood depends on sailing and a good crop rotation and things.
Well, I think this is probably related to the concept in Ecclesiastes, which talks about things being meaningless or like chasing after the wind. In other words, okay,
yeah, it's bad. Yeah,
Granny's died. What's your inheritance? It's here it is. Catch it, right? That's your inheritance gone. It's just
yeah.
gone. So I guess the point being, you
look at
your household are the people who are going to give you an inheritance, so you might be sensible not to trouble them too much.
Well, you're cutting the branch out from under you, and like I said, you can connect it because of the wind with Peter falling in the water as he walked out to meet Christ because he turned to the wind. That's kind of like the ultimate vision of this, where you can inherit Christ if you look upon him and you can walk on water with him. But if you turn to the wind, that is what you'll inherit, and you will fall because of that.
Very good. Wow. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. Wow. I feel like the first half of this I'm okay with, right? The fruit of a tree is the thing that it produces regularly, and righteous people's fruit being a tree of life. Where do we think of a tree of life?
Christ is the tree of life.
Yeah.
And so I suppose you could say that is the righteous man's inheritance as well.
Also, fruit grows into trees.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. A tree can produce dozens of apples or fruit, but only a few of them will actually grow into trees. So
the fruit is the offspring as well. So if you think about it like a man, I mean, you see how God, Christ, as a tree of life, as he's often conceptually connected as, is the offspring of David. He's from the line of David, for example. But as far as the capture souls things, in the commentaries I've read, they always connect it to you're capturing souls for God. You're making them righteous. You're saving them, as opposed to capturing them so much.
Also, what was in the Garden of Eden?
The tree of life, yeah.
Yeah, so the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. When they were cast out of the garden, they no longer had access to the tree of life, which I guess is sort of connected to the fact that we die. So there's a sense in which the product of righteousness is eternal life.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the second half is going on about. Whoever captures souls is wise. I might have to leave that as an argument for people in the comments to help me out here. I'm drawing a bit of a blank.
Yeah,
I mean,
in modern parlance, we say that a writer captivates hearts and minds if they are very persuasive and if they inspire people. I don't know if that's how captures could. It is a very modern way to use the word capture. Or fishers of men. That's what Jesus said.
Very good. Yes, that's a good connection. So if we then see this parable as talking about eternal life, then the fishers of men, yeah, you're right, would be not only producing. I mean, again, I think of Jesus's other sowing parable, that the seeds that land in the good soil produce a harvest of 100 or 1,000 times what was sown. So if you are righteous, you produce fruit. The fruit grows into trees, which produces its own fruit. So you're kind of, and as the other trees being captured souls. That's the connection that I'm making here. So it's describing.
Well, in my King James version, it sounds much more positive. It says, "And he that winneth souls is wise." To win a soul sounds much more positive than capturing them.
Yes. All right. So this is, I agree. This is
just another reason why we should be reading the King James version. Anyway.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah, capturing souls just sounds like Dark Souls. When I could write Proverbs.
Or Pokemon or something.
Oh,
yeah, Pokemon. Yeah, I could write a whole allegory about Dark Souls and pushing your luck and. When
he who dodges before attacking is like he who wakes before morning.
He who lets his shield down in an unknown area.
That's your assignment for the week. Okay, last one. If the righteous is repaid on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner?
Yeah, it makes me think of that other line, those who are was it it's something like, truly they have already received their full reward. Yeah,
that's the preaching on the street corner of the Pharisees.
Yeah.
I love it that they've hammered over and over again how if you're righteous then you'll get rewarded, and in this case they've found a way to phrase it that means that repaid is a word that actually works for both righteous and wickedness. So I don't know. In some ways, what a proverb is it's a super condensed, boiled down bit of language which captures an idea, right? So you could say, remember, my son, you will find situations in which a little bit of preparedness and planning ahead could help you to avoid a whole series of catastrophes and bad luck. So you make sure that you take due consideration of the future. Or you could say, look before you leap. And clearly the second is going to stick in your brain more and come to mind at the vital moment. So I think that's what we see in Proverbs, is a bunch of ways of trying to capture a truth. However, any one of these sayings, because it's so small and short, is just, it's like a single beam. Like, in a camera, you have all the pixels looking out at the world. It's like one pixel on reality. It's just a really tiny, precise measurement. But when you put all the proverbs together, you get this rich, multicolor picture. With you can start to piece it together and say, why? Okay, you've given me this bit of wisdom, but how do I trust you? How do I know it makes any sense? But you can actually compare proverbs against each other and like we've been doing a little bit during this stream, and build up that fuller, more complicated understanding. But the genius is that you don't have to be a million IQ to be wise. You just have to follow these simple self-contained ideas, meditate on them, make it a way of life and instinct, and you could be a wise person without we're not being asked to kind of constitute the mathematical equation for morality. So I do love Proverbs. I love their pithiness. I love the humor in a lot of them. Also, I find them genuinely helpful. Yeah, go on.
It's just the same. It's saying the same thing with a lot of imagery, fresh ways of seeing the same lesson that make it more vivid, I guess is what you were saying.
Yeah. I think it's crazy how fresh the Proverbs feel whenever I return to them. So, I mean, I must have listened through the book dozens of times, and yet every single time the experience is the same. It's like, oh, wow, that is really interesting, applies to my life, something that I should bear in mind, something I can improve on. It's like an endless process of self-discovery.
The aphorism is the fundamental unit of tradition.
Ooh, that's interesting.
That's a good proverb.
Fundamental, yeah.
Maybe I should write my own one.
But I think you could make it seem even more ancient because the fundamental unit feels quite scientific. But it's you could say something like as a house is bricks upon bricks creates a house, so sayings upon sayings creates a righteous life, something like that. I think writing our own proverbs is probably quite a productive activity. But I like the Dark Souls twist.
I thought you were going to say that maybe writing our own proverbs is a
mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exercise in hubris.
Well, there is a proverb which says, can you, like in one of the other chapters, that's can you find a man who's wise in his own eyes? There's more hope for the fool than for him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but I think part of the journey of becoming wise is in exploring the ideas. I don't think we are to think that all wisdom is only contained in the Bible, and any other source, including our own brains, is useless. More that we should have some humility and compare. If we think of something that appears to be wise, it may be actual wisdom, especially if we're older. I think probably I'm almost 30, so I think I'm going to struggle to claim to be an old wise man yet, but I'm working on it. I'm looking forward to being like 80 or 90, and when my beard will be white, and then I can.
You'll still be just reading Proverbs, but when you do it as an 80-year-old, it'll sound so much more wise.
Well, maybe by then I'll have them all committed to memory, and I won't have to be scrolling around in a browser like a young fool.
You're sitting at the fireplace with your phone.
Well, isn't that such
a... Instead of running in Psalms, be rocking in Psalms on your front porch.
But of all the things to aspire to be, isn't it so sad that young people are aspiring to be TikTok stars? Because all of the people who are TikTok stars essentially are young, like healthy, attractive people. Well, once you've, aged out of that aspiration, what's your life about? But aiming to be an old wise man or an old wise woman who can guide the people around you, that's something that you can work your whole life towards. So that's my
it's
plan.
Interesting that you bring up TikTok, because when we were talking about riches and and material wealth in some of these passages. I was thinking of the modern equivalent, which is also, it is still money, but it is also social media acclaim is a huge what do you call it, a huge motivator. So the people, if you tweet one of your Bible verses and it only gets 4 likes, you shouldn't worry too much about that. If you see someone posting something mean spirited getting 40 or 400 or 40,000.
That's interesting.
The tech block is the 15 minutes of fame running out.
Yeah. Well, wealth from dishonesty quickly disappears, but wealth from hard work grows over time, is from Proverbs 13. And that's also something that's very evident if you look at people who've become rich quickly. They spend it immediately. Newly acquired wealth is not much long-term good to anybody, it seems. That's an interesting point, though. I mean, I know that with my Twitter account and with YouTube as well, if I had gone down a very political route, I'd have a lot more followers and attention and so on. I think I also would have lost interest pretty quickly. The only reason I've bothered to keep doing these streams and so on is because it's something I like deeply care about, the Bible and sharing it with people. So that maybe that's even an object lesson in itself, right? What looked for a while like a sacrifice of trying to do streams that seemed more wholesome and therefore not getting as many viewers has actually ended up being the only reason that this project has stuck around and been fulfilling at all. But yes, I'm far from holding myself up as an example of a wise person. I've made many mistakes in my time. That's why whenever I read Proverbs, I always learn, because it's taking me such a long time to. In some ways, it was stupid in this stream to be reading them at that rate, because what we should have probably done is just pick the first one, whatever it was, and just spent the entire hour and a half just thinking that through, meditating, as it says.
Well, one stream per line, I think, should have been the idea.
Yeah, one stream per line, one stream per day.
They reinforce each other.
True.
So if you did that, you'd probably get quite repetitive if you were doing this entire chapter line by line.
Even within the stream, we've had a few times where we're like, well, we've already talked about this idea. But I think it's really great to talk these things through. But I would just repeat again that I recommend for people to just read them, spend time not even deeply thinking them through and linking them together and explaining them, just purely taking them at face value. It is wonderful. It's very helpful, I would say, in my life. I recommend. All right. Well, thank you very much for everybody joining me on stream. Does anybody have any last comments or other things?
Just one thing about 22. How many women without discretion have nose rings?
I guess I don't know if that's just a cultural thing. I mean, nose rings, I think in the Near East are much more of a thing than in the West. So I don't know.
The reason why pigs have nose rings and livestock have nose rings as well is for them to be led, so that you can grab onto it and pull them.
Is that not why women do that?
No comment.
All right. I think we've reached the end of how long we can sensibly say wise things. Clearly,
maybe it's definitely too much for today because we're wrapping up. But I wonder if you can recommend some Bible verses, and maybe we could have another Bible study sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in this idea of not doing good and serving God, serving each other for the reward, even if it's just the righteous, reward in heaven or good things happening to you. just for the sake of glorifying God, or just for living, if we were put here by God, then to serve Him and to do good by His name, to do things that He likes, should be a reward in and of itself, even if you never see the reward from that.
Yes, for sure. I'd love to do a stream on that topic. That sounds amazing. And although a lot of the stuff we've looked at today is it seems to be saying that serving God will result in good things happening to you because righteousness leads to its own reward. Actually, I'd say there's much more material in the Bible on what you're describing. So there's loads of things that come to mind. But yes, the way that following Christ is always described in the New Testament is, I mean, it's compared, for example, to taking up your cross, as in, when the Romans were crucifying people, they'd carry a bit of the wood to the place that they were being crucified, and it would then be nailed to them, and then they'd be hoisted up. So carrying your cross, or anybody who puts their hand to the plow and then looks back is not fit for the kingdom of God. Okay, we don't have time to explain that right now, but I'm just, my brain is sparking off thoughts about what we can do for that stream. So yes, love to. Anybody got anything they'd like to plug or otherwise?
Read the Bible.
Yeah, great.
I'm going to say Women's Hour over on Academication's channel at 8 p.m. every Friday, and read the Bible.
I'd say join Landa's Discord, because there's some lovely people there.
Thank you. Yes, we've got a very healthy community over there at the moment. I'm really happy to see lots of very interesting, supportive, encouraging conversations happening every day. Sometimes people come in and they have questions and they seem a little hesitant, like they're not sure if this is, I'm not sure if this is on topic or whatever. But honestly, we would love to have discussions about whatever you're interested in, whatever's on your mind. We're super welcoming. So yeah, you're missing out if you're not in the Discord. Brilliant. Well, I keep thinking I need to write a script for the end of my videos, because it always peters out awkwardly.
You have to. That's why people do remember to like, share, subscribe, smash the ring the bell.
Okay.
They don't do that thorough promotion. They do it just so I'll have something to say at the end.
Yeah, I always feel awkward about doing that, but I don't know what else I can reasonably say. I need a little. Maybe I could do like there's benedictions at the end of some of the New Testament books, aren't there? Like and now may the grace of God. Maybe I'll do one of those. This is so Protestant. Any Catholics watching are going to be rolling their eyes, unless they do the same benedictions.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always
at your back. Yeah.
May the sun shine warm upon your face, and may the rain fall soft upon your fields.
Is that the Irish blessing?
I don't know. I sang it. I sang it for when I was in the choir. It was in one of the anthems we would often sing. Yeah, the Shepherd's Blessing, I think it's called.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go for this one, which I think is from the end of 2 Corinthians. May the grace of the Lord Jesus, the Messiah, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.